I'll leave it at that. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but I think the danger of decay from within, danger of the Punjab itself falling apart under the weight of so many of these groups like Lashkar al-Taiba, which launched the Mumbai attack, like etc. It's right in Punjab. So I don't think we're just talking about Punjab staying together and the rest going apart. I think the whole country is decaying rapidly in each of their areas.
I will only add one small point to that, because I totally agree. I did point to all of the reasons why one might think that you should just give birth to new ethno-nationalist sort of nations. But it's easier said than done. Jonathan's pointed to exactly the two major groups, the Baluchis and the Pashtuns, and why they don't themselves cohere and congeal in a way that's conducive to independent nationhood. My point is more that you do not have to wait for a Baluchistan ambassador to show up at the United Nations across town for the notion of a territorial Baluchistan that is in a de facto way governing its own affairs, even if violently and plagued with internal dissent, to be a more useful way of understanding what happens in Baluchistan than whatever central policy comes out of Islamabad. I'm saying that we are moving closer to that direction. We can live in a world in which these soft spaces, whether it's Palestine, Kurdistan, Baluchistan, Pashtunistan, Kashmir, the list actually goes on, in which those spaces are just more useful lenses for understanding that area than Pakistan as a sovereign state. So whether or not that has an end state of independent nationhood, very few populations will ever be so lucky. And the Baluchis won't be among them, and the Pashtun probably won't be among them. The Kurds, maybe they will one day. We'll see.
I was always intrigued by the notion of a failed state. How do you define exactly a failed state, and according to what standards?
Oh, you take that.
It's a very loose term, and I think Parag made a very excellent statement, which is Pakistan is failing now, and you don't have to wait until parliament is taken over by the Taliban. That's not the way it's going to work. Taliban won't take over Pakistan. What happens is you have the erosion of the judicial system, of the economic system, of the, I suppose another failure would be the failure of the army. I know you admonished us not to talk about the military holds Pakistan together, but if the army were to disunify, and it may happen because, you know, it used to be the army only recruited from certain areas of Punjab, so it was basically a Punjab group that was running the country. But now the army is recruiting from all over the place, so you could have within the army a much less unified thing. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. So I would look at all those things as factors of failure, but I think it's an overused term, and it's too much of a think tank term and doesn't have a real operative significance.
Let's just say that it's a continuum. It's not a single set of conditions. It's a continuum. You're moving towards it or you're moving away from it. And that's why, you know, Foreign Policy magazine every year has the State Failure Index. Countries are ranked really according to about 10 different criteria: public service provision, stability of the government, or sort of a risk index, a variety of just factors that help to explain how coherent, strong, robust, and effective the government and the state is. And again, all countries fall somewhere along that line at different times.
From a U.S. foreign policy perspective, what is the course of action, and should we throw our support behind any of the various groups? Should we just stay? I mean, obviously, you mentioned that that we're taking a much more realistic perspective. We're engaging the regional actors, not just going at it as a unilateral power. But where's our road forward, especially with concerns over nuclear proliferation and so on and so forth?
Well, can I take a crack at it? This is, I think this is actually Parag's area of expertise more than mine, but too much of our pattern of relationship with Pakistan has been a fair weather friend, as opposed to the way they look at China, an all-weather friend. China's always there. But the fact of the matter is, we go heavy with them and then we pull back, heavy and pull back. I think we need to find a way where we can have our aid programs survive those occasional periods of egregious behavior by Pakistan, which we should expect from time to time. We should expect a Mumbai attack from time to time. We should expect the kind of two-facedness, the way they're handling the sanctuaries while we're fighting in Afghanistan against the Taliban. But, so let me leave it at that, and then you pick up.
Well, I'll pick up right from there. We are going to continuously persist. If this stays on course, we have committed to pumping, 1.5+ billion per year into Pakistan over the next 5 years. So let's say that remains the case. Jonathan is right. We are going to be in a semi-permanent state of engagement with them in one way or the other. So that itself is a demonstration of where this policy, where U.S. policy is going. One of the main issues is this conditionality question. It's been largely unconditional assistance thus far, and what the Obama administration has said, during the campaign it would like to do is to add more conditionality. The trouble is, the devil is in the details. How do you certify that the ISI and the military have stopped dealing with the Taliban? They haven't, they won't, they never will. That would be suicide from their point of view. How can you not know your enemy or even your friend? Because depending on who you talk to in the ISI or the military, the Taliban is both friend and enemy, frenemy, if you will. So we're not going to be able to certify these things, and we have to tolerate that quote-unquote egregiousness, exactly as Jonathan said. We have to tolerate it, we have to continue to tolerate it, we have to work with it. We do have to play sides and pick sides. We used to not do that. We didn't care because of Bashar. Then we woke up, we said, oh, now we will talk to Benazir, we will talk to Nawaz Sharif, now we will talk to the ANP, the Awamis in NWFP. We finally woke up and realized that if you want to have any influence with someone, you actually have to talk to them. Surprise, surprise, right? But it not only applies to, let's say, Hamas in Palestine or Hezbollah in Lebanon, where the U.S. hasn't yet reached out to them, but if you're not playing all sides within a country and you don't know who's going to win in the internal contest, if someone comes to power and you weren't talking to them and you don't know them, they don't owe you anything, right? So that's why the U.S. is now starting to play a bit more of the game, and you hear about reaching out to moderate Taliban. Please, that's used in quotes because I don't know what is actually meant by that. But I do agree with Jonathan that we have to be engaged in a variety of ways if we want to actually shape the situation.
Let me just say real quickly, there's a real vicious circle going on, and this has nothing to do with the Taliban. This is to do with a group that's supported by the military, by the ISI, called Lashkar al-Taiba. They're not the only one. It's a Punjabi group. They're a very disciplined guerrilla group, sort of like Hezbollah. They were founded by the ISI to fight in Kashmir and to keep attacking India. When they do these attacks, like Mumbai in November 26, 2008, the Indians naturally are angry and they start moving their troops to the border. So what happens? The Pakistan Army has a new mission. We must defend the nation. So that means they can't, be too generous with civilian authority. But even worse from a U.S. policy point of view, they move those troops from the frontier area to the Eastern Front because of India. So it's so easy for a group like Lashkar, which is indirectly, we don't know how much, supported by elements of the army, to cause the army to focus on the wrong enemy. India is the wrong enemy. And I think this is really something that we're struggling with. The good news last week is that those 6,000 troops that were moved to India's border are now back in the SWAT, finally. But still, they're not properly trained for COIN operation, counterinsurgency operation. They're trained to fight the big war against India, because that's the big bogeyman that keeps the military in power in Pakistan.